Sex addiction, step one. That's our topic today, because in the journey of sex addiction recovery, you gotta take your first step. The first step is powerful. It's life-changing. It is the beginning of a journey, and how deep you do your step one can really determine how quickly, how rapidly you mature, and how quickly you can walk through the rest of the steps. Because when step one is truly done, your life is different. I know it was for me. Now, if you're not a subscriber to our channel, please, we have hundreds of videos that you can watch and you can learn from, you can grow from, you can accelerate from. We want you to be encouraged, so please subscribe. And if you have a question for me, I will respond as soon as possible. But you got to put the question in the box. So today we're going to talk about step one, so stay tuned. Step one for sex addiction. This is a really big thing. The first word in 12 steps is we. We admitted. Now the word we means that Doug's not alone being a sex addict. That there's millions of us. When you consider the billions of dollars that transfer in just to the porn industry, the sex industry a month, you realize you're not alone. There's millions of us. But for whatever reason, God chose you to get better. So you have to do your step one, but you're not going to do recovery with your self-will. You're not going to do your recovery with a better version of you, a more spiritual version, a more moral version, a more determined version. You're going to need a team. Okay, and part of the recovery process is you getting in a group, getting a team, having accountability. And if you don't get into that, you're not going to be able to really succeed long term. And then you don't want to fail every 2 to 3 years, or every 2 to 3 months, or every 2 to 3 weeks, or in some cases every 2 or 3 days. I've been there. You've been there. We means we're going to involve other people in the process. Admit it. Admitting that you have an addiction, especially to sex, is hard. Because sex is healthy, sex is supposed to be good, and it is good in the right place, in the right context. It's amazing. But when you use sex, the way that you and I have used sex, in an altered state, in a fantasy world, pornography, disconnected, to medicate every emotion that we have. If we're happy, we act out. If we're sad, we act out because we don't know how to feel. And admitting that I'm addicted. I'm addicted to a process. I'm addicted to maybe chasing the person, maybe acquiring a sex act, or maybe just masturbation and pornography, or just looking at porn for hours and hours and hours. Whatever your behavior is, from cruising to acting out with others, or just yourself, you know you're addicted. You know you've cried. You know you've tried. You know you've prayed. You know that you have made promises, looked yourself right in the face and said, I'm going to stop. This is ridiculous. I'm going to stop this. And then you don't stop. So I hope that you admit today that you are a sex addict. There's nothing wrong with that. Acknowledging that you have an issue is the beginning of success. Acknowledging that you're broke is the beginning of becoming wealthy. Acknowledging that you're sick is the beginning of becoming healthy. Acknowledging that you're an addict is the beginning of not being one your entire life. I've been sober for over 35 years. You can be sober, and I didn't do it by myself. And I first had to admit, Doug has a problem. And when I did that, the doors started to open up. My heart started to open up. And I started to be able to involve others, which takes us back to we. So we admit it. That we're powerless. Now this is tough, because I've worked with addicts over 35 years. They fly from all over the country, all over the world to come do 3 and 5 day intensives. And I love addicts. I've dedicated my whole life and career to working with sex addicts. Okay, I love you very much. But we are one stubborn group of people. Okay, we like to keep trying even when trying doesn't make sense. We keep pushing when pushing is not the answer. We are so determined that we're going to do it in our own strength sometimes that it can take decades before we really admit that we can't do it. I've worked with billionaires, millionaires, sports figures, political figures, leaders in medicine, leaders in law, leaders in all kinds of fields where they're the top 1% in the world at what they do, but they can't stop masturbating or porn or cheating or going to strip clubs or looking at pornography. And it's destroying their lives. And that moment when you acknowledge, I can't do this. I, by myself, no matter how wealthy, no matter how smart, no matter how cute you are, no matter how fit you are, no matter how important you are, can't do it. You're powerless. You cannot do this by yourself. Just look over your own history. You haven't been able to. I wasn't able to either. I was pretty smart, pretty persistent, pretty creative, but I couldn't get it done. Okay? When you admit that you're powerless, you're saying, I can't. I cannot do this. I need help. It's kind of like acknowledging when you're drowning that you need someone else to throw you a rope to pull you out. That unless you have that rope, you're not going to make it. That's what powerless is. It says, I have no power. And then you surrender, that you can't do it anymore. And you start working a process involving other people and maybe workbooks and doing the things you need to do, okay? But you admit that you're powerless and that our lives have become unmanageable. Yes, you might be brilliant, but you'd be more brilliant. Yes, you might be wealthy, but you'd be more wealthy. I'll never forget one guy early in my career, this is like over 30 years ago. He says, Doug, you don't understand, I'm a millionaire. I said, I'm so sad. And you could tell he didn't understand what I was saying. I said, no, I'm sad. He goes, why are you sad that I'm a millionaire? Because you'd be worth tens of millions if you weren't a sex addict. All the time and energy and creativity you're putting into your addiction. And I can tell you, I've worked with thousands of sex addicts over 30 plus years. So I know the impact it's having on them financially. So their lives were unmanageable, not just financially. Their marriages were hurting. Their relationships were hurting. The people they acted out with were hurting. Their children were hurting. I've written a whole book on adult children of sex addicts. There's lots of pain and more pain that affect the lives around you. So we're not just admitting that our lives become manageable, but oftentimes the lives of people around us have had to adapt to our immaturity, spiritually, emotionally, morally, the way we think, how selfish we are. You know, so many women write me, Dr. Weiss, I think he's a narcissist. Well, that's not the case, generally speaking. It's just that they're so spiritually, emotionally, and morally immature that they look like a narcissist. They're so selfish and they're so short-sighted and they can't apologize. So there is pain and that your life has become unmanageable. Now, step one is so important. I can't emphasize it enough. And sometimes, like, we have groups in our office, support groups, and they present their step to the whole group. And then the group decides if they've done step one. You know, some guys have to do it 2 or 3 times to really get to the place in their heart of hearts that they're powerless, that this is a permanent powerless. They will never be strong enough to walk into a strip club, look at pornography, have sexual rights to themselves. They will never be able to do those things again. Never, ever, 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 ever. That's accepting that you're powerless. And for me, I want to be powerless. I want to be powerless over those things that hurt me. And I'm powerless over alcohol, I'm powerless over drugs, I'm powerless over porn, over sex, caffeine, sugar. I'm powerless over so many things. But I have an incredible life, incredible marriage, incredible outreach to people around the globe because I'm powerless. So I'm going to encourage you to really, 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 really work through step one. Now, as a sex addict, we have a 12-step workbook you can work through that. There's a 100 exercise workbook, you can work through that. There are support groups. If you can't find one locally, there are phone groups to start the we process. You are going to need a we. Okay, your intuition knows what I'm telling you is right, that you can't do it by yourself. And that's how I know someone's powerless. They're starting to make phone calls. They're starting to go to group. They're actually believing that they can't do it by themselves. And so what you want to do is believe your behavior. If your behavior is you're admitting that you're powerless, you're automatically allowing people to start to help you. You're automatically reaching out for others. You're reaching out for the rope. And if you're not reaching out for the rope and you're not involving others, you're not powerless yet. You're still powerful. You still got a little bit inside that says, I can do this. Well, let me tell you, you probably can't. And the sooner you can't, the quicker you get to be free. That's the irony of the 12 steps. I gave up power over alcohol, and I've been free ever since. I gave power over. I don't have power over drugs. I don't do drugs. Okay? I don't do porn. I haven't done porn over 35 or 6 years or something like that. My polygraph in my office demonstrates that. You can be permanently free from addiction. Addiction is a temporary state, solving a temporary problem, usually emotional pain or other things. And it's not a permanent solution. But once you get well, once you get free, you can resolve those issues and you can heal and you can be strong and successful in every area of life, spiritually, emotionally, sexually, financially. You can have a great life, but it starts by doing your step one. Now, if you are not a subscriber to our channel, please hit the subscribe button. And if you have a question, put it in the box there below. I'll be happy to respond as soon as possible. And I really want you to consider, as a sex addict, you don't have to be sick. You don't have to be plagued by this. But you don't get to pick how you get better. Step one is your first step.